Hello, my name is Joel McLeod.
I'm Roland Tanner.
And welcome to the Thursday 905 Roundup with our very special guest, friend of the podcast, municipal politician, guru, sage, fortune teller, whatever have you, Alan Can. Welcome back to the 905er. Thanks for coming back, Alan.
Thank you, Joel. I don't know if I deserve such lofty titles and designations.
You do now. You do now because I just said it.
Oh, yeah, you just said it. It's recorded and it will stay there for the end.
It's now on the internet forever. You're not getting it back.
It's out there. I'm not retracting this. There's no way. Yeah. So yep.
But yeah, so we invited Alan on, who runs a very insightful blog on our Substack called The Cantastic. That covers municipal politics, not just in the 905, but across this great country of ours from coast to coast to coast. I don't know. And he does that in his part-time, folks. I don't know how he.
Yeah, I don't know how I have the time to do this either. It just, it's somehow manifested itself. And just with correction, The Cantastic is my pseudonym, which I write under. The newsletter is called #MuniPolyMatters. I'm starting to get used to saying that. And
it all works. But we very much thanks for coming back to you. And we're going to do not ask to go around the country, but just around the 905. And we thought this episode would be fun because we're starting to see municipal races starting to heat up. We're starting to see some now that the provincial election is over and that mess is stopped. We're now starting to see some the municipal races starting to heat up, and people are now declaring their intentions and starting to hit the hustings. So, Alan, what if you just kind of tell us, pick a few spots in the 905 that kind of stick out for you that have caught your attention?
Well, why don't I start from my hometown of Mississauga? Now,
absolutely, sure.
You're probably wondering, why am I talking about Mississauga? Bonnie Crombie, there's nobody really credible running, with all due respect, running against her. Mm-hmm. She's seems to be at this point going to coast to a third term as mayor. But I think in Mississauga, what's been noticeable is that there are actually a number of open wards that are not being contested by an incumbent councillor anymore. One ward is Ward 9. That is where longtime councillor Pat Sato, after 30 years in the job, has decided to retire. Some of the notable names that are running for that Ward 9 is current school trustee Noka DeKroob, as well as former MPP Bob Delaney. He was a Liberal MPP for Mississauga Streetsville. He lost the seat in 2018, so it looks like he's trying to make a comeback municipally, which is also interesting because Mr. Delaney, 4 years ago, when the regional chair of PO was an elected position, he was actually registered to run for that before Doug Ford came in and Fano snapped that election out of existence. So, and of course, I have to mention Ward 6 in Mississauga because, Ron Starr, who we've all documented very well, he's not registered to run yet officially, but he's currently embroiled in several legal issues. He's finally, after what appears to have been months of silence, finally broken his silence through his legal representation. He's denying all the allegations against him that he allegedly keyed former councillor Karen Raz's car. He's saying that he does not condone harassment of any kind, but he's denying these allegations. Right. And he's actually trying to seek an injunction from the city's integrity commissioner's report from being released, because he says the report was unfair and impartial and they did not do a proper investigation. The city, I'm surprised because they showed a bit of political courage. They're actually fighting Starr's legal injunction, and they're fighting back against one of their own councillors.
Well, if you think about it, they've paid probably a lot of money to that integrity commissioner to come in and do that report. That's literally the tax-paying dollars at work. People are definitely going to want to read that report and get that on the public record.
Yeah, I think the key is that I think people want to see this report come out before the election and have all the facts straight before they pass judgment on Councillor Starr if he decides to run again. On top of that, former Councillor Raz's own legal defense team, they're throwing a legal action against Starr as well. And on top of that, there's a candidate that, full disclosure, I'm supporting. His name is Joe Hornick. He came within 200 votes of unseating Starr in 2018 when none of this was happening, without any open support from Hazel McCallion at that time.
Right.
So that was a very rare thing that happened. Actually, in the Mississauga News, one of the columnists actually called Mr. Hornick the counselor in waiting. I don't know if that's what jinxes candidacy, but
stuff like that I always to take like a grain of salt, because that's the stuff that tends to kill campaigns before they start.
I know.
I did want to. You did mention with Bob Delaney running for regional or not regional. Sorry, Ward 9. Ward 9. This is a interesting tidbit I saw a few weeks after the end of the provincial election for Peel School Board. Jill Promoli registered to run for trustee in that case, and just because I like to stir the pot. Thoughts on failed politicians at one level running for office in a lower level? General thoughts.
So regarding Jill, I'm gonna have to do a couple of full disclosures here tonight. I volunteered on her campaign, and she's a very passionate candidate. That provincial run was the first time she ever ran, so she's not like a career politician from my sense of things. And so for her to go into running for school trustee, because when I talked to her, she had a lot of like thoughts about education, and I think this would probably be a better fit in terms of like where she should direct her talents. Regarding to your wider question, whether sort of politicians who failed one campaign running and then subsequently jumping into another role, I'm ambivalent about that. I don't really have that big a feeling towards that, but I'm very selective. I think unless it's like someone who's had a long career in politics and then decides, they want to try again because it looks like there's an opportunity, like a Bob Delaney. I should also mention former MP for Mississauga Streetsville. Seems Mississauga Streetsville is getting a lot of attention. Brad Butt is seeking council seat in Ward 11, where George Carlson is retiring. He's a former Conservative MP. So there's a lot of this going on, but my thoughts are that if you are a bit more fresh, that you only just started running for the first time, didn't work out, and if you feel that you could probably have something still to contribute at another level of government, hey, it's a free country. I can't stop you from doing that.
Right.
Yeah, I tend to feel, well, certainly I think any candidate, I mean, someone like Jill Promoli, who's new in the scene, to an extent, I was surprised that having run for the province, she would go down 2 levels, so to speak, to school trustee, that I would have thought she'd be a good candidate for council, but maybe there just isn't the opening. You can only run if if the timing is right, so to speak, opening up on the council. But yeah, I mean, I kind of feel like everybody's got a right to a few kicks at the can. It gets more complicated, I guess, with I mean, currently there's a lot of people talking about Andrew Horvath running in Hamilton. But I guess what you can say is like, well, if you've had a whole career in opposition at one level, the chance of actually being in government at another level, I can understand the temptation of that. Someone like Horvath clearly has ability. Whether it comes with all kinds of other considerations. I think more to the point is the kind of the people who just won't quit is the problem I see in municipal policy. Which maybe brings us naturally to Milton.
It's also an unfortunate. I don't know why I say unfortunate timing, because we have provincial and municipal elections happening the same year. So it's always going to be, unless there is like a snap election that launches the province into an earlier campaign ahead of a municipal election, this is always going to be the case. But yeah, you wanted to mention Milton. Go on.
Well, I mean, I'm partly poking fun at Gord Krantz, who, but I just Googled it to remind myself because I can never believe it when I see it, but who was first elected, has basically been in office without interruption, I believe, since 1965, which was before any of us, including me, the old person in the room, 5 years before I was born. Was a councillor and then has been mayor since decades.
Since Milton was just some farm buildings.
Yeah, he's in his 42nd year as mayor.
Yeah. I mean that's. I mean, credit where it's due. I mean, that's amazing. However, I'm not sure that it says a very good thing about the local democracy in Milton, if I'm completely honest. But I mean, what do you?
Well, it's ironic you bring up local democracy, because at the I think it was like the Chamber of Commerce breakfast or whatever, where he made his announcement, he was saying it's because of democracy that I'm putting my name forward. Well, I actually had word from certain people in Milton that when that happened, a lot of them were texting each other going, WTF? What the F? Like, seriously? Like, they were expecting Gord to like fold it in. I mean, this is a good year to like wrap up your career, because you've left a legacy for Milton to become from the farming community that you grew up into this one of the fastest growing municipalities in Canada. And I'm looking around the council table, and I do see that there are a lot of people around Milton Town Council that can step in as a potential mayor. I'm thinking of councillors like Sishan Hamid, Samira Ali, who was last seen losing the Milton provincial seat for the Liberals. Councillor Mike Cluett. I mean, if you want to even go outside the box, I would even think like the guy who owns Troy's Diner, if you want to find somebody of a more populist bent who's against high tax. But if that's your cup of tea. But I'm just saying, like, I'm sorry, like Gord Krantz, he's 85 years old this year, and I don't want to play the ageism card here, but like this town needs new ideas. There's like scores of people moving in from Hamilton, Mississauga, Toronto, and they need new leadership. They need somebody who could fight for the town.
That's exactly that point. Is that some of the Roland, you and I have been talking about on this podcast since we started it, has been the changing dynamic of the 905 as a place. Like we're no longer this sleepy little bedroom community that people park the cars and hop on the GO train and go into Toronto for their job. We're growing into vibrant communities, and we're kind of at this crossroads of what direction do the municipalities want to take in terms of development, in terms of growing and attracting people to settle there. And I'm just, we need to start really thinking outside the box. And I get the sense that it's definitely not happening in Milton, because if it's just like, well, I'm going to run because I can, that's not a good enough reason, in my opinion. And the one thing I have noticed so far, I mean, this is early, but I have noticed there's been a kind of a lack of real contenders for the various mayoralships, the 905 that I've seen. There's a couple that are like I'm thinking in Vaughan, Mauricio Bevilacqua is not going to be running again, so that there'll be a contested battle there. But that there's nobody's, like you said, in Mississauga, nobody's stepping up to really say, I'm going to take on Bonnie Crombie. I want a debate on ideas. I want to put forward a vision of. Because here's the thing, Milton kind of has the same problem, or I'm sorry, Mississauga has kind of the same problem as Milton, sort of, and bear with me for a moment. But Mississauga has expanded to the point where it can no longer expand it. And the legacy that Hazel McCallion has left to them is it's now just a collection of subdivisions and strip malls. There's not really a sense of Mississaugan identity other than it's a place that you park your car and go into Toronto. And it needs to start changing. There needs to start having that debate on, we need to change how we develop and build as a city. Same argument that Milton needs to have. You need people with mayoral ambition to put forward ideas of, this is how I want the city to look. After 4 years, if you elect me as mayor, after 4 years, this is what the city will look like. And I don't see those debates happening really anywhere in the 905. And I'm going to say, save for Hamilton, but that's a different argument.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling, and I think we should let Alan respond in a moment to what you just said about his hometown. but first, I will butt in, as I do. When I see politicians getting re-elected year after year, decade after decade, I don't see. I just think it's absolutely emblematic of bad local, where people aren't really paying attention. And I know that McCallion's much loved figure, but yeah, ultimately the fact that she was just re-elected uncontested decade after decade, the same with Gord Krantz, means that things weren't questioned. The development of Mississauga wasn't properly questioned, and mistakes were made that are so regrettable. I mean, mistakes were made right across the 905 in terms of strip mall development and low density housing and all these other things. But we're starting to see to an extent, we saw, basically, mayors never used to get beaten. They would resign. So if the mayor didn't resign, they just kept on getting re-elected. And Hazel McCallion and Gord Krantz are kind of posted for that. But even in Burlington, I don't think before Cam Jackson actually lost an election, a mayor had lost an election in a long time. They just went on to other things.
You had Marion Mead Ward beating Rick Goldring.
Yeah, that came after Cam. So the Cam Jackson was beaten by Rick Goldring.
Before that, the mayor just said, "Okay, I'm done.
Yeah,
see you later," and they walked off.
That's very emblematic of all across municipalities across the GA. But just going back to Mississauga for a minute, the thing about Bonnie Crombie is that I don't think her vision is necessarily bad. Actually, it's sort of almost like a transitional phase. Like she's talking about smart growth, she's talking about more massive mass transit or public transit, getting people to not use their cars. I mean, good luck with trying to push that on a population that depends on a car. But it's a very I mean, I listened to her State of the City speech a few weeks ago, and it sounds ambitious, like she can deliver it very ambitiously, but I would not mind seeing a different vision, but I just don't know what that would be. Her last two elections, the most credible, and if I could call it that, opponent was the guy that ended up being sued by Mohammed Faki from Paramount Fine Foods because he was harassing him with like anti-Islamic slogans. This guy was just a nut job. Like he's just a disgrace.
And then he went out to Calgary or went out to
he went out to
Alberta.
Calgary, tried to run for mayor there, and did a bunch of racist stuff out there too. So like if that's the most credible opposition you can find towards the sitting mayor, then yeah, Mississauga is I would not be surprised if like Bonnie Crombie I mean, God forbid, serves as long as Hazel McCallion. Good God. I find more interesting stuff going up in Brampton right now because, like, there's just like, one drama after another.
Well, Brampton definitely is drama, isn't it? Well,
let's go to Brampton because, like, Patrick Brown is currently using his mighty position as mayor of Brampton to try and win the Conservative leadership race. And a lot of luck that's doing it. Like I know that two people have cast their hats in the ring for the mayorship of Brampton. But the question again is, do you think Patrick Brown's not going to win the Conservative leadership? Like he's just not. Then I can't see the math working out for him. So do you think he'll come back and run again for mayor of Brampton?
That is the $1 million question, because let's remind to your listeners, the deadline to register as a municipal candidate in Ontario is August 19th at 2 p.m. Right there. Like if you got in before 2 p.m., fine, but right at 2 p.m., nobody comes in afterward. So, and the vote for the federal Conservative leadership is at September 10th. So unless Patrick Brown is gung-ho all in for the Conservative leadership, he's not coming back municipally, then we'll see like what happens after August 19th. But I'm still watching August 19th because a lot of surprising things can happen on the last day to register municipally. You can just get in a flood of randos of nowhere that just come in, and you like have to like look through and see who these people are and like look them up on LinkedIn and see what they did in their careers. So that's $1 million question, and I'm not really sure. But just lately, what's going on in Brampton is crazy because Charmaine Williams, who's the former Ward 7 and 8 councillor, she was elected as a PC MPP back in June 2nd. So, and this is something that's being disputed by your friend Sam Graywall from The Pointer, but it's Patrick Brown and his bloc, if you would call them, have a different view. Is that are you allowed to preemptively find someone to appoint to a council seat should that councillor, while seeking office at another level, get elected? My understanding of the Municipal Act was only when the seat is officially declared vacant can council initiate the process to either appoint someone or to do a by-election.
Right.
This obviously they're going to do an appointment.
But like it should be known like she would have won the seat, but she has not been sworn in. Like there is a swearing in ceremony with Lieutenant Governor.
Well, I think she resigned just this past week or so, so she's officially vacant. But I'm talking about what happened before. They had a meeting where they preemptively appointed former councillor Elaine Moore, that in the event that Charmaine Williams is elected, then Ms. Moore will take over as a placeholder until the October election. Now, Charmaine Williams took part in that debate. I understand she voted for this motion. So Stan Graywall over on the Pointer said, I was just listening to his podcast. He said this was perfectly fine. Charmaine knows the ward better than anyone, so why shouldn't she have a voice in picking who should succeed her as she leaves council? But I guess for that particular reason, yeah, maybe it's a really large gray area that wasn't even, nobody's ever done it. So this is why it's so confusing. And now because of this, Patrick Brown and his supporters on council are literally boycotting the council meeting, thereby denying quorum. Basically, you can't put Ms. Moore into the seat unless there's a council meeting to vote on it. And now because they're not having council meetings, they're just kind of stuck in this limbo.
I was thinking about it. It's the usual procedure is someone wins an election and then you have the vote. It's unusual to have, like you say, to preempt it is unusual. I mean, in Hamilton, there are currently a couple of vacant seats and they're not going to be filled. I mean, at this stage of the game, it's unusual to fill the seat because you're so close to the next election.
My question is why
filling it?
Why expel all the energy?
Isn't the Municipal Act say you have to fill the seat within like 60 days of it being declared vacant, no matter what process you have to fill it?
I think when you get this close to an election,
mostly it's by appointment. I know. You can
appoint, or you can have a by-election, and obviously at this point they will always appoint. Maybe they have to. Maybe I've got my facts wrong here. So
regardless of what the rules are, the question is why expel all this energy on this when, how much power is this councillor going to have between now and October? I mean, here's the thing: I don't know of any councils that are actively sitting or actively pursuing agendas really at the moment, aside from kind of housekeeping duties, because most of those councillors are either they're out, shaking hands and kissing babies, and they're going to use the summer to hit the barbecue circuit in their cities as they normally do.
With Brampton's case, I believe there are a number of investigations within council subcommittees going on pertaining to Patrick Brown's possible use of staff, along with failed projects or alleged failed projects like the Brampton University that may have funneled financial benefits to certain counselors' friends. I'm just saying these are allegations, but these are investigations that need to take place, and they can't take place if council's not meeting. So it was very interesting because with Charmaine gone, council is basically deadlocked in a 5-5. So Patrick Brown, and he has 4 counselors usually now backing him: Rowena Santos, Paul Fidsante, Harkirat Singh, and Michael Paleshi. And then there's the 5 other counselors that came out with a letter a few months ago stating that Patrick Brown is running Brampton like an autocracy, like a dictatorship. So that's incredibly colorful accusations there. And now with council kind of just deadlocked, they can't get anything done. They can't even meet together because half of them don't show up.
It seemed that Brown was certainly whenever people talk about dictatorship, it's always hyperbole.
It's a hyperbole. It's like a rhetoric.
It's like when people talk about elected dictatorships, it's like, no, it's elected. It's not a dictatorship because you can elect them out again.
Yeah.
But he was doing things that were unusual at a municipal level. He was kind of behaving like a provincial or federal politician. When
you have Pierre Poilievre, the Conservative Party frontrunner, using the local shenanigans in Brampton and putting it on his social media saying Patrick Brown can't be trusted, this is more of a serious story than people are letting on.
I mean, it's certainly entertaining. I mean, I was pleased to see, and I know nothing about the candidates, but I was pleased to see at least that of the 2 people who had thrown their hats into the ring to run in Brampton, that they're not all just white men, which is in a city where white men are in a minority. It's kind of good to see because it's like, seriously, Brampton is going to consider electing someone from a visible minority or something. It seems crazy to me, but so I was kind of pleased to see that. But as I say, I know nothing about the candidates whatsoever. I mean, do you have any familiarity with the people who've actually put their names into the ring
for Brampton mayor?
Yeah.
Well, all I know about a 23-year-old kid named Cody Thatcher is he ran for a regional councillor 4 years ago. he was very active for a while on Facebook, posting a lot of very, well, I would say incendiary memes, making accusations about Brampton councillors engaging in rather alleged unethical behavior. Like, I won't go deeper into it. They look very cartoonish in my opinion. So
a young
question,
kid with a bit too much ambition for his.
I mean, talent. I know we like to promote youth in politics, but if like you have to develop a certain level of maturity to like, I mean, this guy is. I mean, for my understanding is that this Cody guy is a electrician apprentice, or he's studying in the skilled trades background. So other than that, I don't know what else he brings to the table. Would be very interested in hearing what his platform ideas are. I mean, other than that, I mean, the only other name that I can conceivably think of that would throw their hat in the ring should, let's just say, Patrick Brown decide not to run for Brampton mayor again, is Councillor Martin Medeiros. He's been on council for 8 years. He seems like a solidly capable councillor, and I mean, that's the only name I could think of right now. I mean, short of former Mayor Linda Jeffrey coming back, which I don't think is happening, then the slim pickings here because just before Patrick Brown went on his national excursion to try to win the Conservative leadership, Brampton City Council appointed Medeiros and Pat Fortini as the two official deputy mayor of the city. So Medeiros represents Brampton West, and then Fortini will represent the east side of Brampton. It's almost like the biblical splitting of the baby in half. They just sorry, that's a bad metaphor, but Pat Fortini registered to run for re-election, so it's just in my mind thinking that maybe if like Brown decides to not come back, then Martin Medeiros could possibly be a potential mayoral contender, and that's the only thing I've heard of so far in Brampton. But
maybe it's still too early, and I guess Brown
it's still too early.
I see our time is coming up, and I just thought we should of course we're in the 905. We should talk about the last great big city in the 905, and that's Hamilton, because we had big news this recent week that soon to be former mayor Fred Eisenberger is not going to be running for re-election. He's declared that he will not be filing his paperwork for that. So right now officially there's only two candidates listed for. There's three. Okay, three mayor. I know that we have for the former. My brain is completely fried.
Former mayor Bob Bratina.
Yep.
Former CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, Keenan Lewis.
Yes.
And
the third?
and then the third is a guy named Ejaz Butt, who I understand is an electrician or something like that. But I've seen his name on the municipal ballot before. Keenan Loomis seems like the guy that brings the most change, I guess, if that's what you're looking for.
Well, he's being touted as the change candidate. That's his that's his shtick. He's the guy who's going to come in and clean house and finally get stuff done in Hamilton City Council. Whether that will happen remains to be seen. But I definitely think it'd be an interesting juxtaposition between Bob Bratina, kind of literally the old politician, the old school, the old guard in Hamilton, versus a new face, maybe the new modern face of Hamilton politics.
Well, I'm wondering if Bratina only just threw his own hat into the ring. It's coincidental that Eisenberger should drop out fairly shortly after. I mean, I'm wondering, this is the old guard. The old guard is going, let's not split the vote. Eisenberger's term has not been a success. Red Hill Valley Expressway scandal is still going on.
Coots Paradise
scandal. That it's been bad, and he's been at the head of a council that say it's dysfunction. And not all of them, but far too many of them are frankly a disgrace to the name of council. And I think that was going to. A bit like Rick Goldring in Burlington, the kind of some of the behavior of some of his councillors kind of stuck to him after a while, and I think that was probably looking to happen in Hamilton, and perhaps. But these guys seem to work together, the Yannies and the Eisenbergers and the Bratinas seem to want to get themselves elected.
Those have been the names of the last 4 terms. Those 3 people have been the mayors. Like it's just kind of it's been a kind of revolving door of those three gentlemen.
Just in case any of our listeners haven't heard it, I mean, Butina sort of launched his campaign with what seemed to me to be the most unintentionally hilarious quote, which was, "We can't keep on doing the same thing in Hamilton and expecting different results." Yeah, no kidding.
Hey, no
exactly
kidding.
what Keenan Loomis
You
is
look in the
saying.
mirror lately, Bob? Like, come on,
He was
man.
just going like, yeah, what he said.
Another thing is that I find like something is like in the water in the city of Hamilton's administration, because they let Bob Bertina have a press conference. No, yeah, that. But no, metaphorically speaking, they let Bob Bertina speak to the media inside, just outside the clerk's office, and just basically have a mini press conference. When Keenan Loomis and Ward 14 candidate Kojo Dante registered right on May 2nd, the first day, City Hall immediately told him, "Get the hell out of this building. You need to get off city property. You need to go stand on the sidewalk where there are cars flying by and you could possibly get run over." That's the spot where they were told to go have your press conference. Like, stuff that is not right. I will say this on your pod.
Oh, we did it on ours. Entire episode on it.
It was terrible. I mean, I think they, in their defense, I think they after the outcry when that happened, I think they changed the rules, which then has helped Bertina, who's insider, to launch his campaign, virtually inside. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you can't win, I guess, as a staffer, but I mean, it came out of them massively misplaying that.
The optics just looked very, very bad.
Yeah.
Well, it does. But that's been Hamilton kind of politics. Is that like it's very insular, it's very cliquey. And it's a political class that looks after its own. They're there, and they're again you'd see on social media the old guard coming to defend their own. It doesn't matter what they said. It doesn't matter what the scandal is or what the criteria is. That old guard says, hey, we can't have change. The councillors who are advocating for change, the Narinder Nans and the Maureen Wilsons and the John Paul Dankos, who come out and say, hey, you know what, we need to start thinking of doing things differently in this city. And it's this, they're these radical elements. They're going to take the city down this path of destruction. The end is nigh if you elect them. You need to go back. You just need to give it back to us to protect you. And it's like this. It's a tiresome argument. I'm not sure people necessarily buy it anymore. I really don't. I think people are a little bit more hesitant.
I feel like there's still a sprinkling of people, and I'm totally basing this on just what I see in social media, which is probably unhealthy. There's a few people that tell people like Laura Babcock or Joey Coleman, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Everything is fine the way it is. And that's just the polite version of what I read.
Well, municipal politics is such a weird thing. I mean, if I compare Hamilton's election this time to Burlington's last time, it was like in Burlington by May, it was like, okay, this is going to be a change election. There's going to be, some councillors were retiring, but it was like, I felt very strongly that there was going to be a new mayor. It just seemed that the tide was going very strongly in that direction, and thus it turned out to be. Hamilton is so different that, people like Joel and me, and Laura Babcock and Joey Coleman, we are kind of the downtown elite in some ways, and that's where we kind of live, and that's where we kind of vote. I don't accept the elite label whatsoever, but I'll take the downtown bit. Once you get into kind of New Hamilton, you get up past the mountain and out into the suburbs, where I'm willing to make a reasonable bet that people don't read Twitter half as much, and we know that a tiny percent. If you look at how many people voted in the provincial election and then think, well, how many of them are actually going to vote in the municipal election? Geez, you're actually getting down into small numbers of people who vote at all. And then an even smaller number of people who actually pay close enough attention to know anything about their councillor or know anything about even the mayoral candidate. So I worry that although it seems that change is in the air, it's not going to spread out into the burbs far enough. That feeling isn't going to catch enough of a wave outside the downtown to actually carry the day. I hope I'm wrong, because that change needs to come. And at the moment there are only 3 people running for mayor. It'd be nice if it stayed that way. Or if anybody else is going to throw their hat into the ring, it should be someone of serious stature who can kind of blow other candidates out of the water, so we don't get into a vote splitting situation. Certainly we saw last time with Vito Scro.
Right. I think last time was really the lesser of two evils because
it
Vito
absolutely
Scroll was
yeah.
against the LRT in Hamilton, and which was even which would have been an incredibly backward decision to make.
I mean, we've spoken about it a few times that, again, Joel and I have a background in liberal politics. We're no longer associated with that. It's all completely independent. We stress week after week. However, that's our background. And the bizarre thing in Hamilton is that for, really a decade or more, the liberal grandees in Hamilton have campaigned against Liberal Party policy, both provincially and federally, when it comes to LRT and other stuff. And I don't know why they do that, because their track record is appalling failure.
It's about power. It's not about policy. It's not about the platform. It's about power. It's about.
But they've got bugger all power because they can never win an election.
I didn't say it was competence.
Yeah, no.
It's about power. It's that small, Tammany Hall kind of politics of I control the city. I control who gets elected where, and I control who sits on. It's just I want the power. I don't care what I do with it. I just want it, and I want to use it for my own personal gain. And that's where, and that's kind of been the status quo for a while. And it's not that people embrace it. It's just people get worn down by it. It's just like, well, that's just the way it is. That's just the status quo. What am I going to do? But I got to get on the bus because I got to get to work. I got to make my shift down at my job. And my hope is, as you said, Roland, that the changes. No, we need to take charge and make the.
And the federal and provincial Liberal parties need to wake up and realize that the people who have been running their party in Hamilton for the last decade and a half, longer maybe,
do not ascribe to the values that you put forward to the rest of Ontario.
I mean, they literally. Okay, whatever you say about, you may love Kathleen Wynne, hate her, whatever, doesn't matter. In our party system, everybody tends to go marching over the top for their leader, even in an election going to get blown to.
What really struck me as an example of this. Sorry to interrupt. What really struck me as an example of this was when Jason Farr was nominated as the standard bearer for Hamilton East Stony Creek. You had your local Hamilton activist by name of Deirdre Pike, who ran up for the Liberals under Kathleen Wynne and said, I was a candidate for Kathleen Wynne. This guy does not represent our values. This guy literally wanted to throw the encampments in downtown where the homeless people were staying and get them out of downtown. I don't know whether he wanted to throw them in jail or some other alternative.
It was a very old school conservative style reaction to these homeless people shouldn't be allowed to do this. Call in the police, get them out. And the police were called in, and it was a nasty situation.
It's funny because
Jason Farr was the kind of poster child for that. And it's like, he has no business running for a progressive party in his province. And it was an utter disaster. He came in, third?
Third. It's interesting about Jason Farr. Sorry, I just want to finish on this point. It's interesting about Jason Farr because I think before Bob Bertina jumped in, I was hearing he was going to run for mayor or maybe councillor in Ward 5, because apparently his downtown ward is sort of leaning away from him. Cameron Croce, he seems like a very strong progressive candidate. And I wouldn't be surprised if Jason Farr does run for re-election in Ward 5, where he was just running provincially. Because that's where he lives now. And he's not dedicated to the core anymore, apparently.
We shall wait and see. But I do see our time is coming up. So I'm going to, as we say on this podcast too often, we could probably go on for hours on this one. But thanks, Alan Can, for coming on to the podcast yet again and sharing your insight. It's been a blast as always, and no doubt we'll do this again, more probably closer to the municipal election in the fall.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, August 19th is the last day for candidates to register, so we can finally have an official list of who actually is running, and I'll definitely be open to coming back on and talking about who's actually running this time.
Yeah, that might be a good moment to update everybody and see who's really who comes out of the woodwork in the last few take off. But it's shaping up to be interesting, and certainly I think Hamilton and Brampton are going to be fun, and some of the other ones will be a bit sleepier. But who knows? Maybe someone will throw their hat into the ring in Milton's got some serious talent. There are people on that council who should well, they need to run one of these days.
Well, thanks very much, Alan, and we'll talk with you guys later. Bye-bye. That's it for this episode of the 905er. Thank you for listening. As always, you can send us your feedback, thoughts, and concerns or ideas for future episodes to our email, info@905er.ca. We love to hear from you. You can help us keep the 905er going by financially supporting us through Patreon as well as PayPal. Visit us at 905er.ca and click on the support tab. As well, links are in the show notes for your convenience. Lastly, you can find us on social media. Search for _905er on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. So long for now. See you next time.
Looking to make the most out of this life and optimize your personal wellness? Then check out the Natural Man Podcast. Join me, host Mike C., as we explore all areas of human wellness, physical, mental, and emotional. Learn strategies to optimize your own well-being and be in the driver's seat of your own health. Remember, your doctor works for you. Learn biohacks, neurohacks, ways to improve sleep, and ways to optimize your body and your mind. Check us out on Apple, Spotify, the Fountain app, and at naturalmanpodcast.com.